Welcome to the Cityline Book Club chat. I love that I can be here right now with Perdita. So you know the book because it is making bestseller lists. My Mother's Daughter by Perdita Felicien, a book that I think has blown everyone away that's had the opportunity to read it. If you have not read it yet, follow the conversation, but go buy a copy. You want to be a part of this book. Perdita, how good is this book doing? Tell us. Let's celebrate.
Yeah, it's an instant national bestseller, meaning, before it even, as soon as it debuted, it was a bestseller and has been on the chart for about 3 weeks now. And it's just, it feels surreal. Like, it feels surreal. I cried when my editors at Doubleday Canada told me, like, I did the ugly cry tea. Like, we've all done the ugly cry, like, because I'm just so grateful that it's been embraced the way it has.
When I look at it from the outside looking in, it's like you are an Olympian, you are, a mom and a wife, and now you're an author, an athlete, and it's just, I would ugly cry too. I think it's an amazing accomplishment. And then that's just all sort of like the superficial titles. The fact of the matter is the book delves deep and really pays homage to everything your mother has gone through. And so many women have walked a similar path. And so it's really beautiful to see that being celebrated and acknowledged. So, the book starts with talking about your mom's beginnings. And she eventually goes from St. Lucia to Canada with a family to be a domestic worker. And, you delve into all sorts of things. There is domestic abuse, there is homelessness, there is, of course, racism. You knew about your mom's story, I'm sure, but you didn't know all of this about your mom's story. So when you started to get in and dig deep, like, how did you feel?
You know what? Like, it's so funny. My husband, Morgan, he's a writer himself. He used to work for the Toronto Star, but he would hear me like interviewing my mom over the years. And he'd be like, Perdita, like, take it easy on her, man. Like, you interrogate her like she's, you're the FBI. Like, you get pissed off of me. And I'm like, I need to excavate the story. Like, I need to get everything from this story. But I think I was so concerned about getting the details right and it being truthful and it being real that at times I didn't realize how close to the surface it really was. And I hate to admit this now, but I will say it because, I can. I was writing it and I wasn't really thinking about necessarily the impact of my mom at the time. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was just trying to get this thing down and I was trying to mine it. Right. And I didn't get the chance really as I was writing it to sit back. Now, though, T, because I am talking about it and my mother has been very emotional. You've seen in some interviews that I'm like, oh, this is still, she's living it. And so I think I'm, for the first time, really processing, some of these moments, like my dad putting my mother out in the middle of the night. I'm 6 years old and feeling so helpless. And knowing that I have to pick up every single necklace and shoe and bottle of perfume to bring it in the house before any neighbor can see that he's done this to us. And I'm living this now for, I think, the first time since those things happened.
Yeah. So I get it because you're a broadcaster as well. And so you can put on that hat and you can just drill in and say, I just need the answers, and you compartmentalize. But then, you see your mom who it's like her exoskeleton on display and it must be very raw. There's got to be, for me, there was a lot of anger and, I'm not even related to y'all. You're my friend, but I like just enraged, not even shocked, but still so angry. And I know that we talked about it on the show today about some of your mom's experiences, particularly with, the family, the Harrys that didn't want to get up when she was, ready to conceive. Or ready to go into labor. So how do you feel about the folks that wronged your mom? And is there any kind of contact with them at all at this moment?
Yeah. So the interesting thing about writing a book, right? Like, especially for like the biggest publisher in the land is, I'm writing about people, like real things. And so they were like, the lawyers are up in this tea. Like my editor, I love Bhavna. Bhavna would be like, Perdita, I don't know that you can say this. I don't know if you can, but I'm like, but she did it to my mother. Like, and you know what? I think I'm trying not to get too emotional with this. So as I was writing it, the all of it was really like shocking to me. But like you said, it was the broadcaster in me. Now though, I'm like, yeah, and I wanted to like at times like be like, how the heck did you all do this to her? And that part, even talking to people who have read the book, that comes up a lot. Like, I'm so angry at the Harrys. I'm so angry at this couple. They are dead now. They are no longer alive, which is why the lawyers were like, tell all the tea, because you can't get sued for libel if they're dead, right? So I was able to really tell the truth of it. And I'm glad that was the case. And for me, I realized that my mother, I struggle with who my mother is at times. She is a beautiful woman, but sometimes she's too forgiving to a fault, Tracy, because I was like, she's not angry at Canada. She's not angry. And her viewpoint is, well, Canada didn't do this to me. People did it to me. And you can see who she's in the book. And I think her positivity and the way she looks at life is really the only way that she could get through it. But there's times I'm like, can you just cuss this dead woman stink, please? Like, cuss this stink, right? Wherever she is in the ground, because she was a wretch. But my mother won't really, like, she knows it was horrible, but she really also says, well, that gave me, you know, an opportunity. And it's very, because the woman that I am today, Trace, I'm not going there like that, honestly.
You know what? It's almost generational from my perspective as well, because the way how our parents had to put their heads down and just strive and thrive and get by, there's no room in their headspace to get into a lot of the unpacking. It's almost like you start to unpack and then you start to unravel and then you can't go forward anymore. And then there's our generation that wants to unpack everything. And then our kids, Nova, Sid, Eva, they're going to unpack it all. Like as of age 12, they'll be like, so what do you mean by that? I don't know how that makes me feel. Like, you know, every generation is sort of getting a little bit better about really sort of exploring what's going on and who's in charge and why are they in charge and why do I get less than them? And so, yeah, I understand. I see both points because I would be enraged as well. You talk about living at a woman's shelter, and it's sort of such a bittersweet story because it must have been a rough time in your life, but it was a beautiful testament to a system actually working. And we don't often hear about that. Do you remember that time in the shelter? And can you talk a little bit more about that time, how you even felt as a little girl?
Yeah, so the Denise House, and I'll let you in on this little tidbit. So, you know, I started writing this, the idea was 2012, started writing, you know, actively in 2014. And so obviously the natural place to start, one of them was to call up the Denise House, the women's shelter in Oshawa, Ontario, that, you know, ushered us in. And as I'm calling and introducing myself on the phone to the woman who answers, and I'm explaining, my name is Perdita, and I'm writing this book, and we lived there in 87. This woman says, Perdita, my name is Sandra McCormick. I'm the executive director. I am the one 34 years before who ushered in your mother on that cold November night in 1987. Trace, it was the same woman answering the phone. Like, and that's just when I'm like, this, I have to tell the story. This woman is still here. And I do remember that time. I remember that time because I was so happy. And I did not understand that we should not have to be at a place like this, right? And I remember like my mom, like she would like sing. And I'm like, mom is singing? Like, she's not a great singer, but mom is singing. Okay? Like, mom is, and all the women had chores and they had the things that they had to do in the house and the responsibilities. And so they'd rotate cooking dinner and washing, you know, cleaning up the kitchen. And on my mom's night, she would sing and do her thing. And the woman would tease her, you know, Mary Brown's fried chicken, you know, their slogan was, has the best legs in town. My mom has like really big, powerful legs. And the woman would say like, no, it's not Mary Brown, it's Kathy. I remember that, right? And my mom's laughter, this big, loud, you know, booming laugh. And it's like, this is my mother. Like, and I remember that so vividly. I didn't realize that we shouldn't have been there. Right? I didn't realize that this is a place that I knew we had to flee and we were leaving dad, but I didn't get that. And so when we were there, the name of the place was actually Auberge, which is shelter in French, like it means shelter. And there's a woman named Denise Penny who was there the same time as us. And I don't remember any memory of her, but this is going through and doing the research. We overlap by a few months. And once she left the shelter around the same time that we did in 88, she ended up being tracked down by her partner who she had fled and unfortunately being killed. And the name of the shelter, her name was, like I said, Denise. And the name of the shelter was renamed from Auberge to the Denise House. But it is just, for me, just a searing remembering that women are still not safe and women still need these places. And so a portion of everything I make from this book, every book sale, and I hope people feel really good about supporting this book sincerely, because it's just going to go right back to the Denise House, because I know that changed the trajectory of my life. And you know how we feel, right? Paying it forward, giving back in some way makes everything that we achieve and the platform that we have actually mean something and do something. And that's really why I've decided, like, I just have to say thank you in this way.
I think it's amazing that your mom might be the reason why you had such good times in that shelter, because she was giving you joy. And there was no reason for you to think that you should not be experiencing joy. And that is a beautiful gift. That is such a gift from your mom, and such a testament to the spirit of kids, right? Because they are joyful. They're made joyful. And, you know, eventually the world takes a bit of that away.
But you know what? You said something on your Instagram last year that really touched me. And I'm just paraphrasing, but I think what you said was basically, me choosing joy is an act of, you know, resistance. And, you know, I'm going to not really consume all the bad things that are happening in our community. I'm going to be joyful. And I think that is really something, especially as Black women, Black mothers, that we often have to be for the sake of our children, right? We have to be, and in some ways, it's almost like, and it really isn't fair that we have to put on this, I won't even say it's a facade, because it's not, because I know we are at times happy, but you can't even reveal all of your sorrow, because you know that the world, it will not always be kind to you or your children. But in order to protect them and shield them, you have to, you know, give out this joy and exude this thing that might not be how you're feeling truly inside. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. And it's almost like, that was what your mom was giving you. And that's what we give our kids, you know. It's like, it's a little bit of fake it till you make it, but it's like, I'm going to give you all the joy and I'm going to give you all the warnings. And then please go out in the world confident and able to battle, but like happy. It's like such a contradiction, but that is our role. And so, yes, you said it exactly right. That's exactly what it is. Yeah. Now, you mentioned your dad as well. I want to talk about that. I know that you've got a fantastic relationship with your mother. But what about your dad?
What about my dad? You know what? Oh God, this is so, I love talking to you because I feel like I don't have to give you any polish kind of, not that I do that anywhere, but you know what I mean? Like, I don't have to explain. I know you're going to get it and the audience will get it too. Like two women just telling their truth and sharing what's already on the page. With my dad, I'm getting to understand him in a really different way. I truly just crave for him, and I've craved all my life for my dad to be this man that he is not. And it is only at 40 years old that I'm really awakening to, like, he's not capable of what you want him to be for you. He's never shown up in that way. He's never, and I'm gonna try not to cry, he's never been that for you. But 10-year-old me and 12-year-old me wanted my dad to be that person. Wanted him to really be that. And why did it take me my whole life to realize that he's not capable of it? Why did it take writing this book for me to realize that's not who dad is? And, you know, it's interesting because there's times I would come home and I loved books as a kid. And my dad, he's the one who made me love books. But my dad was so temperamental. Like, you could never know what dad you're going to get on any given day. And so this is the dad that would take me to like the bookstore and, you know, buy me one book, but we'd sit there for an hour and read all the books so I could just read them. But then there would be days, T, and this, you know, I think it was National Scholastic, where you'd bring home the little catalog and you could order the book. And I'm like, Dad, I want to order a book. And so my dad would sign it out, but he would never put his name. He would just sign it in my mom's name and put care of. And he'd never give me the money though. So then when I take this thing back to school, as a, you know, someone in fourth grade, they'd be like, okay, but there's no money and it's not signed. And I was like, okay, but dad said I can get a book. Like, he did not even want to have that financial obligation. Do you know what I mean? And it's just like, sign the thing, pay the $12, you cheapskate, and just do it because it makes me happy. Why is everything on mom? Why is every single thing on this woman? Right. And then, you know, sheepishly you go back and be like, okay, mom, dad didn't sign it. And he also, but he just put your name. So I need the money. Like, mom's like, I don't have the money. Right. So that is who my dad was. And as a child, it's very like, it's just who dad is. But it was very like, it was confusing to me, because some days he's the guy that would take you to the lake and buy you ice cream and tell you all about, like, you know, Shakespeare and history and all these things, and said, I traveled to Hungary. And I'm like, oh, there's a country called Hungary? Do you know what I mean? And he's telling me that he's been there. So my relationship with my dad today, I'm unpacking in since the book has come out. And the epiphany for me is, this is who he is, Perdita. He loves me. He loves me. I know. And I've let go of him being somebody who's not. But it hurts. It hurts to admit that. It hurts.
He loves you the only way he can possibly love you. And I know it's the disappointment of it. It's the constant being let down, and it's the not knowing which dad you're going to be hanging with that day. And that's a lot for a little girl to have on her head and her shoulders. It is a lot.
Yes. And I'll add to is, you know, I also look back at him and I think my mother is such a good woman. Now, she's not without her flaws. As women, none of us are, right? Mm-hmm. But I also realize that she's very loving and she's very committed. And I think back to, why didn't you just become a tour de force, the two of you? Like, that's what she wanted, right? Like, what was this painful struggle about? Like, why did you create such havoc and tumult in our life? Like, why did you have to do that? Mm-hmm. And it's just, and I know for me, it's why I dated the way that I dated. It's why I chose the husband that I have now, who is none of those things in my dad, because I was like, I will not allow any child of mine, boy or girl, to live this kind of childhood. And praise God, Nova is not in that in any kind of way. But I do look back, I'm like, you just had to be a decent dad, and you failed at that, you know? And I'm just reckoning and reconciling all of those things in my life as an adult woman. I think the book has helped me do that.
Do you talk to him now?
I do. But here's the thing, like, maybe this is book number 2, girl. You never know. Like, okay, so this is my relationship with my dad, okay? So the other day I'm driving to the plaza. So I don't talk to him every day. And I never have, like, for a long time, ever since I've gone on to university and been doing my own thing. But we talk every, like, big holiday or maybe a birthday. So every few months we'll talk. But like, my mom makes sure if there's a holiday or she's cooked a big plate of oxtail, I have to drop it off at my dad's house. So I'll see him intermittently, but it's not like a texting my dad or talking to my dad or whatever. If he sees me on TV, he'd be like, Perdita, I saw you on TV. The other day, girl, I was driving. Where was I going? Oh, I was going downtown to film something. And I'm just driving to the plaza just to do a thing. And I see my dad walking in the plaza like in Ajax randomly. And I'm like, oh, there's my father. Okay, I haven't seen him in months, but there he is. I'm like, Dad. And it was like, we haven't skipped a beat. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. We haven't skipped it. So there's no animosity. There's no tension. There's no like, it's like, we'll see each other, we'll catch up. Like if he stayed 6 feet away, you know, from the car window, but that's the relationship that we have. So when I say that, that's just how he's loved me. That's just how he's loved us. Is this, he jumps in, he jumps out, he signs the thing, he doesn't sign the thing. Like, I see him in the plaza, we say hi, I might not talk to him for another 3 months or 3 weeks. That's how it is.
That's how it is. And it's just accepting that, right? Yeah. You know, there's something that so much of the book really impacted me, but one thing that really stood out to me was, and I'm looking at that picture behind you, your life as an Olympian and a hurdling champion, and the moment when the fall happened for you during that Olympics, and coming back to your coach and your assistant coach, and I believe that was a moment that was actually too sensitive for you to even talk about.
Mhm.
And I know, I mean, if I ask most families, especially most West Indian families, where were you when Perdita was in that Olympics? We
No,
all know where we were. We
no.
were all watching. We all have our story. We all have the pain. It's almost like we felt, you know, how do we take that pain away from her? Because you're in your head as an Olympian. Um, have you talked about that moment with your close coaches, and have you sort of walked through that pain at this point?
So me and my coach have never spoken about that day since it's
Wow.
happened. Never, never. You know, in my work as a keynote speaker, I'll talk about it, right? Because I do feel like it allows me just to heal from it each time, or I discover something new about my strength or that moment. So I do that. And I've made it a point to share my pain in that moment only because I know it can help somebody.
Yeah.
But as far as my coach and us unpacking it, had happened. And I remember being, God, being wheeled. And, you know, you can't write everything in a book, right? Like, so you see the immediate aftermath of that scene in the book. But even beyond that, what happened next is I'm in a wheelchair because I'm so, you know, injured. My body's injured. I can't walk now. You know, the shock had worn off. So now the nerves are wakening up, right?
Yeah.
And I'm in physical pain, not like emotional anguish, but I'm now in physical pain. And I remember they wheeled me in a wheelchair to meet my coach. The other thing too, and I'll say this quickly, my coach films every single race.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until years later, for some reason, the Athens race footage was on another tape. Like years later, he recycles the tape or whatever. And I don't think he realized it. So I'm watching the tape and I realize, oh my God, like I'm in the shed watching footage, thinking it's something else, and it's Athens. And you see, mind you, I fall within 2 seconds of the gun. So I'm like frozen in the shed. I'm like, oh God, this is the final. And then you see the gun. You hear the gun, you see him zoomed on me in the Athens Stadium watching my lane. And then you see black. That's when the impact had happened. And that, this is years later, I'm seeing this, right? Like I shouldn't be seeing it, but I'm seeing it. And we had never talked about it. I only then, in my brain, realized that this happened to him too. Yeah. Like this man, the crash happened and he didn't keep filming. He didn't keep following the race because he was completely devastated. And that film going black and is him reacting. And I was like, oh my goodness. I never told him I saw that, right? He doesn't know that I realized that happened. And we've never talked about it. I'll tell you why we've never talked about it.
Okay.
When you've walked a path so intimately with someone, more than my mother, more than even my chiropractor or anybody, this coach, and I had the same coach for 10 years, right? He sees every stretch, every, frustrating practice. He's on the floats. He's in the warm-up. He's, at the finish line with me. Do you know what I mean? So for a 10-year span, this man has been in every single moment. So we don't have to ever talk about anything. Like we've lived this to get to this point. Then when it blows up in our face the way that we did, what is there to unpack between us? What is there to say about that to us? Other people need the closure. Other people need the understanding or the explanation or need to maybe say something to me. But once we've experienced it so much, right? And the pain is still so searing. I don't think anybody else besides the two of us, and I'm making this separate from my mother because it's a whole different pain as my mother, I know. But what I'm saying is, it's so searing and the goal was so close in hand to lose it that way. To revisit and talk about it in any way is so painful in the way that we know it to be, that we simply left it alone. And it has never been uttered or said at all till this day.
See, that makes sense to me. It does. It makes sense to me. Like your coach, you're right. He went through it as well. He fell with you. And so what is there to say, right? And I think it's really important that you made that pivot from, I'm not going to be that fall. Like that was a moment in my life. That isn't my life, you know? And yeah, you've proven it's like, it's a moment in time, and there's so much before it and there's so much after it.
Yeah.
And all those things count as well.
Exactly. You know what? So been really cool about this book coming out and everything. So you imagine Athens was 2004. That's 17 years ago. And now what's happening is a lot of the young, it's mainly young girls who were like 8 or 9 or whatever back then, who I was a sporting hero to them. See, they're now grown women. Yeah. So a lot of them are in my DMs or on Twitter saying, Perdita Felicien, she was my childhood hero. Or I set up the pillows in the living room and followed her. She's coming out with a book. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, it's not that they're buying the book, which is cool. Thank you for buying the book. It's really that they've come back. I haven't heard from them all these years later to say, I remember you. I either remember that day or I remember what you meant to me. And a decade and a half plus later, I'm coming back to let you know. T, when I tell you, anytime I get a message like that from a young, of all swaths of life, of all cultures and backgrounds, T, the way that I feel about that day in Athens, right? I realize I use that as a beacon that others have now years later used it in some capacity. And the only thing I feel now about it is a searing sense of pride. That is all I feel about it.
Good. That is the way it should be, right? Okay, I have a question here from Lawrence. This came in from a viewer right now. He wants to know, what is your relationship like with your sisters?
Yeah. Oh, you know what? In the book, I describe them in certain ways, and we're close. Like, okay, so there's 5 of us. So 1 boy, 4 girls. We're all extremely close. My brother's the odd one out. He's an oddball to me. I love you, Sam, but you're kind of he's a boy. So we all love him, but we're all really, really close. I know people are craving like an updated picture, but I realized in this climate, I just want to give them a little bit of privacy with everything that's coming out. But like they're totally comfortable and okay with everything coming out. But we are like thick as thieves. Like, you know, T, before we got on air, my sister Vonette is like, where's the link for Cityline? And they're like blowing me up. So we're all good.
So, you know, there's this thing with West Indians about airing dirty laundry. We have a thing, right? A lot of cultures do. And I'm just wondering, was there any pushback from your family? Were they like, Perdites, don't put that in there. Take that out. That doesn't look good. That's not a good look. Is there anyone like that in your family? Or is everyone just like, no, go do your thing, tell your truth?
Listen, us airing the dirty laundry, not cool. Not cool. So the truth of it is, before I even started writing, I asked for a blessing or permission. I asked for an okay. Like, give me a green light, even give me a yellow light. I can work with that. Nobody stood in my way, not one single person. Now, this is 2014. I ain't written a word in it yet, right? I've now written the book. The book is out, right? So
it's a bestseller. It's a bestseller. People are reading the book.
People are reading the book. So this is hilarious. So all my sister's kids are grown. So they're grown up. They're in their 20s, their 30s. All of them ordered the book so quick off of Amazon, and they're all pinging me and texting me. They're like, Auntie, I read it in a day. Auntie, I read it in 3 days, 2 days. Meanwhile, my sister has not touched the book, T, has not read it. I don't think any of my siblings, only my one, Ida, who's named after our grandmother, the youngest one, I think she's read it. The rest of them, I think the other 3, they have not read it and touched it. Doesn't bother me. They haven't said, but I know I can tell that they haven't read it. I can tell that they're not interested in reading it. They're interested in like all the press and the feedback. They get on the Zooms and they're watching this now, but they haven't read the book. And so when I when I asked Vonette, my oldest sister who's in the book, why haven't you read it? Like, not even like as a way as I'm offended. I just want to know, like, what is it? She said that all of these things are still so real for her and still so painful for her. And she lived them. She doesn't have to experience them on the page anymore. But what's happening is her 3 grown kids are calling her up and they're on the hotline like, I'm like, what? But I will say, and this is what my nieces and my nephews said to me, which is why I feel like this book is such a gift to them and the generations who are, you know, or at least the first generation, children who are, you know, first generation Canadian, who are the parents of immigrants. What they said is, I did not know grandma. So my mother, our mother went through this. I did not know my mother, their mother has gone through this. And their eyes are open because one is in Scotland, living a good old life. Another one, you know, just bought a house and she's 20 something, like their life is nice, right? Mm-hmm. And they're now looking at what they're living. And they didn't realize the path that it took that others had to pave with their pain, right? With their dignity, for you to be able to talk about, oh, you're going to university and doing this, that, and the third without even questioning it. Do you know what I mean? And they're now looking like, oh, we did not get the breadth of the struggle. And I think they have a sense of appreciation that they never did before. And it's opened their eyes.
Oh, I love to hear that. Because it's like we're walking on the paths of our ancestors, right? They're doing the struggle. And you said dignity, you hit the nail on the head, because we don't even talk about all the indignified ways that people are sort of stripped and humiliated when you're a marginalized person. So damn, that is so good. I like to hear that. You know, I want to ask you this. Okay, you were joking around, maybe there's a second book, but would you consider doing another book? I mean, this is a big project. You started in 2014. It was many years, a ton of research. I mean, the quotes, the script, the journaling, the amount of information in here in detail is incredible. But would you jump into being an author again?
Yeah. So you know, you might have this exclusive, but I've already started. Like I've already started. Mm-hmm. So, but here's the thing, okay? It's like nebulous. Okay, it's like, girl, what have you come to say? Like, what are you talking about? But I really want to explore, and I think I'm a nonfiction writer. I think that's my thing. I don't know that fiction is my thing, or maybe I'll reinvent myself when I'm 60. You never know. But right now, at 40, I think I'm a nonfiction writer. So My Mother's Daughter will not be my only book. I know without a doubt I will write a second, because I am now, and I will publish it hopefully the same way. But I want to explore, and I've talked to you about this, like my infertility journey, which I've only opened about in the last year. I want to explore what that means, you know, having a baby at 38, not being able to do it, and then being a mother at 40, right? What that means. But I'm also like you, like I'm an ambitious woman, right? I'm also a Black woman like you in an industry where there aren't a lot of us, right? On TV. And the reason why I love you, I've always loved you from before I even met you. And do you remember the first time we met? Like we were at like, do you remember on Queen? And then I saw you in the bathroom. I'm like, I gotta say hi to her. I gotta say hi to her. And I'm like, hi, Tracy. And you were so lovely. You didn't recognize me.
I remember you doing breakfast television. You did breakfast television.
Yes, yes, right? I did you and I in 2012. But before that, you and I had met. But you wouldn't remember this. Like it was a fleeting encounter, but you were so lovely. But I've been watching you for a long time, and I've long adored you. And I remember seeing you, and I was in the bathroom, and I was like, say something, do I say? Because you see people on TV and you don't know, right? T, you were so lovely and beautiful and warm, right? And I was like, I just Tracy Moore, I'm in the bathroom. And it was just so good. And the reason I say that is there aren't a lot of us on TV. And I remember, I think, is it Tanya Lee Williams from Young and the Restless? I remember seeing you. And, you know, I really want to explore what it means to be a woman, be ambitious, have your dreams, but then you're a parent, but then you have a marriage, you have a relationship, and like all these things that you want to coexist, and how that all can coexist, can it? And I want to explore that. So it's really nebulous, but I do feel like a lot of women, even regardless of culture or race, really struggle with their ambition in the parenthood. So that is kind of where I want to go in book number 2. It's probably like 3-4 years away, but I really do believe I want to go there.
Oh, I like that. And listen, the reason why I was probably, well, first of all, I would not have this job without people watching the show. So I've never understood people who are rude to folks. Like it's not how I roll. But I was probably so like, oh my God, I met Perdita. I was probably just as like, you know, squeeze.
You were lovely.
Because that's amazing. I love the idea of exploring ambition because I still haven't really figured it out. I know that my kids are more on board with what I do out in society because they are getting it now, I think, at 13 and almost 11. But it's still sometimes a toss up, and there's still like lots of explaining for me to do in the house. Like, why are you going to volunteer with kids in Rexdale? Like, we want you to read to us here.
Yeah.
Or, do you have to be like, on your phone promoting your clothing line right now? Like, can we play a game? The most important thing though is Morgan, like your partner. I'm sorry. If you're going to do it with someone, you need someone who fully believes in what you can accomplish, and you are that for him and he is that for you. And that is like the most important component, I think.
Could you imagine having a spouse who's jealous of you? Like where you are with what you're doing, who didn't hold you down or even check you? Like, not happening.
Nope.
Impossible.
It can't work. It can't work. The family won't stick together. It's just not going to work. Listen, I'm excited. I'm very excited for for the next book. Once you've sorted it out, the infertility thing is huge globally, huge in Canada. We need to talk about it ad nauseum, but also just, being a high performer and having that family and being happy. I'm so proud of you. I really am. Of everything you've done, you do it at such a high level. And I think that's really impressive. You didn't just come out with a book, you came out with a bestseller. You came out with a book that pays homage to an incredible woman, and is giving your family like this beautiful tomb that they can always have, that shows your family history. That's a very special thing when you're part of the Black community. So I'm proud of you, and I thank you so much for hanging out. The last picture, it's funny, our producer Carolyn was looking for pictures of you and I to use during our segment today, and she went way back in my Instagram and found a picture of you and I from a party we had in like 2013.
Yes, at your house.
At my house in the backyard. The cops came, but they were really polite. They came once, twice, 3 times, and then it was time to shut the party down.
You're not throw a party. Let me just say, Tracy Moore, she knows how to throw a party. Get that invite if you can.
Yeah, we have to do it again. We'll have to do it again. But yeah, you keep doing your thing, and yeah, I'm proud of you. So for everyone, we've been talking about, of course, my mother's daughter, and also having a little kiki because we know and love each other. But this is the book. There's another one on the way, but get this one. It's going to teach you a lot, even about Canadian history, quite frankly. And join the Cityline Facebook page so that you can know when we're having this chat with our next author on the list. It is Hannah Khan carries on Uzma Jalaluddin. I don't know if you know her, Perdita, another Toronto woman. She's also been a columnist for the Toronto Star, and she's written this incredible sort of romance where they also get into microaggressions, and it's these 2 halal restaurants that are competing in Scarborough. So it's very Toronto, and there's a love story there. It's lovely. So that'll be our next book club pick. And you have a good day. I hope your family all like the interview because I know they're all watching.
No, they're on right now. They're going to come and critique me. You smile too much. Yeah, I smile too much.
There's nothing to critique.
Exactly. Love you. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day and a great weekend.